Hello Penguin World, I'm the Beardy Penguin and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program Endurance. And right now we just joined our propulsion module from Reclaimer, which of course we replaced with the propulsion module from Messiah, and as such we have no more use for it. So although it hasn't got any more liquid fuel on it, it has just enough monopropellant to deorbit it into the surface of Demise, try and keep the amount of space debris down. So now we're getting our monument lander and we're going to get ready for a second landing on the surface to try and explore the final two biomes on the surface of Demise, so we never have to come back to this tropical paradise ever again. So, we're sending down Ted Kerbin, of course, he is our only pilot on this mission, but we're also sending down Kerbin, who didn't get to go down on the previous expedition. Because, you know, we're trying to spread out the experience points. If Barfoot plants a flag, then he gets a bunch of experience and he should be able to level up to, well, I don't think he'll quite make level 4, but either way, he's going to get a lot of experience, whereas if Peter went down again, he wouldn't get any more experience from it, so it just makes sense. And this lander has a few problems. Okay, so it's using LV909 engines, and they have an extremely low thrust-to-weight ratio, so it doesn't actually have a high enough thrust-to-weight ratio to counteract Demise's gravity when it's fully fueled. It only has, I think, a 0.6 thrust-weight ratio compared to about a 1.6 when it's pretty much out of fuel. So this descent profile had to be absolutely perfect, and I don't want to talk about how many attempts this took. It took me about an hour and a half. You'll see a few cuts here and there as I did my various attempts. And you see we had to adjust our trajectory at the last second to get onto some flatter terrain, because of course with the high gravity and the tall lander there was a serious danger of tipping over. But finally we managed to land on the surface by the skin of our teeth. You look at the amount of fuel we have left in this lander and damn, okay, we cut that absurdly fine, but we managed to do it, thank God. I was worried for so long that I wouldn't actually be able to do it, but yeah, those LV909s, they're really efficient engines, and they're also really small engines, allowing us to use a giant and rather attractive looking heavy landing gear. But yeah, certainly not doing that again. Low thrust to weight ratio landers on high gravity worlds, it's a real pain. But thankfully we managed to land, get our surface sample and our EVA report. And then it is time, of course, to get the rover out of the cargo bay. As you look outside the window, you question if it is safe. The boys at the lab reassure you it is totally safe and that you can handle a little heat. Let's look at the temperature scan. The thermometer seems to have burned off its mount or possibly exploded. Atmospheric pressure scan, even the barometer says it's hot, and it doesn't even have an atmosphere. I love these reports. The goo is glued to the top of the container while gently quivering. You console the goo, promising that you won't spend that much time here. Well, we're going to go on a bit of a rover expedition, so we might not be able to keep that promise. No need for a scanner, you can feel the earthquakes yourself. Gravity scan? Gravity scan data required. Ah, I thought we had reports for all of them. I was sorely mistaken. Most of the samples have been liquefied. Righty-roo. So let's, I don't know if we can actually get those reports into the cabin up here. No, we can't. We just have to collect them all into that container on the rover. Oh no, we can collect them up here. There we are. Container, collect all. Aha! Glorious. Okay, and now for the moment of truth. We need to actually decouple this rover and see if we can get it out of that little cargo bay down there without breaking it. Okay, there it is. Reclaimer rover. Even though it shouldn't really be called Reclaimer, it should be called... oh, yeah, of course we don't have any... we don't have any probe control from here, do we? So, how are we going to get this out of the cargo bay? That is a good question. Right, let's get Barfoot, and let's get him on the case. Barfoot, can you climb up here far enough so that you can actually get in the cargo bay? I mean, you just clipped through the landing legs, so it's already not boding particularly well. Well, hey! We got it! I was really worried we wouldn't be able to do that. Okay, there we go. Nice climbing, Barfoot. You are on point today. Okay, now what we have to do is try and drive this out of here without smashing it. We do a bit of a forward roll, but thankfully nothing on the rover is actually damaged, so we can get Barford out and go grab the scientific data from all of our various experiments, and then we can stick them in one of those 2 scientific storage containers on the sides. 2 containers, of course, because we need to have 1 lot of experiments to take home with us and 1 lot to stick into the lab back on Reclaimer. So we extend our solar panels. 2 small solar panels are more than enough power this close to the sun. Ted, of course, very gracefully getting out of the Monument Lander. And now we're going to go on a little bit of an expedition. So our landing site is actually pretty much perfect. I was really happy with this landing in the end. Not just because we managed to get to the surface with with the lander, you know, without breaking anything or dying or running out of fuel, though that did happen in a few, let's just say, alternate universes that were destroyed by the quick save function. But we also managed to land a mere 20 kilometers away from the second biome. So we're in the Sweltering Peaks biome right now, and now we're going to head over to the hot surface biome in our little rover with all of the scientific equipment that we need. So we're going to head over there, get surface samples, plant a flag, and then, as I said, we will never have to come back to Demise again. We'll have got scientific data from every single biome on the surface, which I don't think I've ever actually done for a planet before. Literally, in all my time playing Kerbal Space Program, I've got data from every biome of a moon, but I don't think I've ever got scientific data from all the biomes of a planet before. So yeah, it's a nice little tick on my completionist badge. This journey didn't take too long. I was at time accelerate for most of the time, and the good thing about being on a high gravity world is the risk of the rover actually flipping over is really minimal. As long as we kept the velocity around 30 meters per second, we were fine for the most part. On low gravity worlds and moons and stuff, you have to worry about going over a slight bump and soaring 20 meters into the air. Yeah, not that problem here, because of course Demise has 0.9 Gs of surface gravity, which is actually more than Solitude. Solitude has, of course, 0.8 Gs, so the Kerbals are certainly going to be feeling like there's lead in their boots. But we're just heading down into this valley here to find a bit of flatter ground to plant our flag on and get some nice cinematic shots. Okay, this looks like a suitable plateau for us to plant our flag and call it a day for our surface exploration of Demise. And look, we're exactly 20 kilometers away from Monument, so yeah, I think this is a safe place to put the brakes on and get out of our vehicle. Who should be the one to plant the flag? Well, Barfoot planted the last one, so we'll get Ted out to plant this one. It's only fair, I believe. Oh, very graceful, Ted. Very graceful as always. Be careful not to break any of the wheels, because we have no way of replacing those. Right, first things first, grab an EVA report. As you step out, you're greeted by the bubbling lava. You think it silently wants you to slip into it. Ominous. Your glove catches fire as soon as you touch the ground. Right, here we go. Plant flag. Here we are. Most of these reports are kind of intended for exploring around the lava lakes, I assume. Because they're quite high up here, so the temperature isn't too extreme. Here we go. Monument. Hot surface. Woo! That was fun. That ride was fun. There we go. Wonderful. And then we'll store those reports in there. Store those experiments. And there we go. We'll get back in. Board. Right, and let's do all the other experiments. Then we'll get Barfoot out to go reset them and take some EVA reports and service samples of his own. Temperature scan. The thermometer has melted. Atmospheric pressure scan. Even the barometer says it is hot. Mystery goo observation. The goo is glued to the top of the container while gently quivering. You console the goo, promising you won't spend much time here. Well, yeah, we've already broken that, haven't we? But we spent an hour joyriding all the way over here. An hour in game time, of course. We haven't spent that long doing it in real lifetime. Most of the samples have been liquefied. Right. Now what we need to do is get Barfoot out. A little bit more graceful than Ted. Oh, never mind. He fell flat on his face and then bumped his head on the rover. Wonderful. You start playing the floor as lava, not because you want to enjoy yourself, but because you don't really have a choice. Wonderful. I love these reports. This is quite possibly just the best idea ever, getting people to make reports for this series. It really is fun. Right, so now we need to go around and we need to... Ooh. Is this thing not biome specific? Log atmospheric data. it is not biome specific. It's just from the surface. Okay, well, it's good to know. But we'll take a report anyway. There we are. Take data. I keep pressing the arrow keys because, of course, I've been using the arrow keys to drive all the way over here. But you don't need the arrow keys to move the Kerbals. But there we go. Restore the data. We need to get onto the rover now in order to actually get the data out of that thing here. That sensor package. Oh, no. No. I feel like this is going to be far more difficult than it should be. We move around the seat. There we go. Take data, take data, take data, take data. And then we'll store all those in there. Then if we swap back to the rover, there we are. We can take all of those reports again. So log seismic, we just move that over there. Log pressure, log gravity, log temperature. Need to take 2 reports of everything, so that we can research one lot and take another lot home, as usual. There we go, and of course get our mystery goo once again. Goo has become a gas! Doesn't seem to be enjoying its new form. Not surprising. You know, we'll do that report again. Screw it. Faint traces of purple can still be found here. Alright, and then let's get them all out again. Take data, take data, take data. Now we can collect the data from that and restore it. Let's see if we can... Nope, still flat on the face. I'm glad I put the solar panels this high up because, yeah, all of the stumbling around that our Kerbals are doing, we might well have broken them by now. I'm also really thankful for the high gravity here, even though the Kerbals will probably be feeling that there's lead in their boots. Yeah, it means that there's very little risk of the rover actually tipping over. So, yeah, it makes the driving a little bit easier. So we've got 11 reports in there. We should have 11 in here. Wonderful! We have all the reports we need to take. Time to get back in the rover and head on back to Monument. It's been a wonderful little excursion. Planted a flag, saw some of the sights, although that particular site is quite possibly blinding them. But yeah, now it is definitely time to head on home. Though you can see Valentine up there. See that star, that really bright star up there? The one to the right that's flickering a little bit. That's a Valentine. That is our nearest stellar neighbour, which hopefully will have some, I don't want to say Kerbin-like, solitude-like worlds around it that we can hopefully travel to in the next decade or so and save Kerbalkind. That is, of course, the aim of this series. But in the meantime, let's get heading back to Monument and store all of our data and get ready to blast off back into orbit. So now I have a bit of time while we're driving all the way back up to Monument. I thought I'd talk about some of the near-term goals of this series. So not the long-term goal, which is of course building a warp-capable ship, but what we're going to be doing in the next couple of episodes. So first of all, we have a bunch of probes arriving at their destination. So we've got our probe to Reaper, which is the new name for Jewel, and our probe to Altos, the new name for Elu. We also have a robotic asteroid redirect mission. I said I didn't want to do another one of those, but then a contract came up that was willing to pay 1.6 million funds for us to redirect a Class C asteroid to the Wasteland, and that gives us an excuse to actually send a Malice lander to the Wasteland and complete all of our Malice contracts. We had more contracts for doing biome studies of Malice than we actually had for biome studies of the Wasteland, which is a little weird, but yeah, it's why I was quite irritated when we destroyed the Phoenix lander on launch back up into Wasteland orbit. Although, of course, we saved the Kerbals, thank God. They had enough Delta V in their EVA packs to get to Odyssey. Yeah, we lost the lander, which meant even though we have fuel on Odyssey, we have no way of landing on Malice and doing all the science that we wanted to do. So this redirect mission is going to pay us a crap ton of funds and also give us another excuse to send a robotic mission to the surface of Mars. So I will need to check those contracts to see if we need to do crew reports. I don't think we do. But anyway, after those, you know, relatively short-term robotic missions have all been sorted out, we're going to bring Odyssey and Reclaimer home. So what we're going to do then is start doing research on long-term habitation, because this is all research we're going to have to do before we make a self-sufficient colony in another solar system, which is going to take a whole other series to do, hence why Endurance is ending when we build the warp ship. And to do that, we have USI Modular Colonization System, which is a whole other game in and of itself. It's got a reputation for being fiendishly complicated, and massive props to Mark Thrim for his amazing tutorial series. I've been doing a lot of reading on all the documentation and on how all of it works. We'll talk more about it in future episodes, but pretty soon we're going to be doing surveys of Nemesis and Guardian and actually finding out the resource distribution on those two moons, and we're going to start looking into building some self-sufficient colonies on those moons. It should be pretty interesting. But anyway, now we've got our crew back to Monument. We're going to move Reclaimer into a slightly lower orbit so it's a bit easier for Monument to reach. Just try and minimize the delta V we have to spend, because of course Reclaimer has got crap tons of delta V after it got refueled by Messiah in the last episode. We're just waiting for the orbits to line up, and then we blast off into space. And you might notice we have about half the amount of fuel in this upper stage than we should. If you look in the bottom left, yeah, for some reason this stage wasn't fully fueled. Now I think maybe fuel crossfeed was enabled, so I think the descent stage used the fuel in the ascent stage, which, to be honest, in hindsight is probably a good thing, because that means the descent stage ran out of fuel and had to use some of the fuel from the ascent stage. So thank God it did, otherwise we would have run out of fuel maybe 100 meters from the surface and smacked into it. This does, however, mean that we didn't quite have enough fuel to get into orbit. Thankfully, though, I did overbuild the ascent stage. I thought the delta V budget would be a little bit too tight, so I added an extra fuel tank there on the bottom. And that means we actually had more than enough delta V to just about get into orbit, and then we just used our monopropellant, of which we have quite a lot on this ascent stage here. We can just use that to push us the final few 100 meters per second or so back into orbit. You see on the second orbit round here, we actually see our landing site again. It's just nice to see the place we landed back in orbit again. We landed on one of the very few purpley bits on Demise that are actually left after the sun has ravaged the surface, which I thought was quite beautiful to actually be able to experience that before we head off to another solar system. Anyway, doing a maneuver to bring us into an intercept with Reclaimer using our RCS. Naturally, but as we get closer, I did actually realize we don't have enough RCS left on this spacecraft to slow our relative velocities. So at the last minute I realized, oh no, we need to turn Reclaimer around and use its main engines to slow the velocity. So yeah, Monument does kind of whiz past, but thankfully we just fire our engines up and they don't go too far in overshooting us. We do have to be careful though, because Reclaimer is running out of monopropellant. Okay, Reclaimer has loads of liquid fuel to get home, but monopropellant wise, we've used about 3/4 of it, so we need to be really careful. We should be fine as long as we are, as I said, very careful. We only use a little bit of monopropellant for our future maneuvers. So the great thing about having persistent rotation is you can just fire them once and then time accelerate through the rotation. That's really useful for larger spacecraft, which is why I actually recommend persistent rotation for lazy people. It's actually less effort than it is to have the standard time warp thing where you can time warp and stop rotation. I think it's actually really useful. But there we go, we do actually manage to dock the spacecraft in the end, and all is well. You'll see here I've actually upgraded the science lab, so I've just changed the CFG for the science lab and increased the amount of science it can store. I haven't changed the amount of data it can store, because that actually affects the rate at which you research things. Just the amount of science, so I don't have to check on them every so often. I had to check on them every 30 days before, now I only have to check on them every 100 to 200 days or so. But with all the science from Odyssey and Reclaimer, we can research a few new techs. Pretty much mostly related to long-term habitation. So, as I said, in future episodes, we are going to begin construction of some semi-self-sufficient colonies on our moons. But it is very complicated, so we're going to be doing a lot of testing. I think first we'll just try and make them self-sufficient on supplies, and then gradually we'll try and get to the point where we can start building rockets off-world, which should be pretty awesome and save us a crap ton of money, especially considering how expensive some of the late-game parts actually are. So you might be wondering what we're doing now. We actually got a contract for some reason to take a picture of Demise, so we're just using the Werner Space Telescope, which doesn't have much else to do at the moment and just take pictures for random people who pay us to do so. The Hawking Space Telescope, however, is continuing to make remarkable discoveries. It has been observing our nearby star of Valentine, and we've made a direct observation of another planet. Well, I say another direct observation. It transited in front of the star, so we can figure out its rough size and mass. And due to its mass and its volume, we know it should be a gas giant, and our astronomers have constructed a bit of an artist's impression for you guys here. They've christened it Lomina, and perhaps we shall visit it in the coming decades. But until then, I have been the Beardy Penguin. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all next time.